It's like 18 men kill themselves a day. And I just think that is a crazy statistic. I might have got that statistic wrong, but it is something like that. And the main person who unfortunately does take their life nowadays is predominantly men.
Where did you grow up and
So I grew up in Exmouth. I've lived there my whole life. Always lived with my mum, my older brother, and I've got two younger brothers as well. So four of us and my mum, living down by the beach, also with my mum's partner as well. So yeah, we've lived there in the same house for as long as I've been alive.
That sounds quite stable.
Yes, yeah. I mean, when I was younger, when I was born, my dad did live with us. Obviously, divorces happen, parents separated, and it's actually worked out really well actually. And I think for the better. I think for both my parents, they're both happier now.
Do you see your dad as well?
Yes, yeah. Spend time with my dad as well. Try and see him as much as possible, but it's quite difficult with work and life, and he's a very busy man as well, so we spend time together when we can, but I do still live with my mum, so I see my mum every day, which is lovely. She wants us to be able to go out and buy a house, which hopefully won't be much longer, but we'll see. But she's been really kind and helpful in that way.
You're going to manage to buy a house soon?
Hopefully. I've been saving for quite a few years.
Wow.
And so's my partner as well. She's been saving well. We're hoping at some point we can put all that money together, buy a house, and yeah, have our own place.
How old are you now?
So I'm 25. I'm 25 now. My partner is 24. Yeah.
I think a lot of people are living at home, aren't they, now?
They are, and I think it's growing, and it will just continue to grow. I think more people will live at home until, I don't know, 40s, 50s, or maybe never even move out. And that's just the current landscape and the way the world is. I'm sure they'd love to move out, but it's just not financially feasible. I mean, who knows, we might struggle, but as it stands, it's not the easiest thing to do.
And what about your brothers? Are they all at home too?
Yes, yeah, all my brothers are at home. So I've got a younger brother who's only 13, so still a little bit young. And then I've got a brother who's 22 and a brother who is 27. So a few of us similar age bracket, and then a younger brother as well. So yeah, we all still living at home.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Is it big enough?
No, not really. We do live in a small house, but we make it work because we all get along really nicely. And when I'm home, usually 9 times out of 10 when I'm home, my partner's at work, or when my mum's at work, I'm at work too. So the house is very rarely we all there, apart from maybe at Christmas time or like birthdays. It's very rarely everyone at home because everyone's always busy doing what they're doing. Mum's partner works quite a bit as well. So it's only a small, like one bedroom flat, which we've extended to fit like 7 of us in, which is quite difficult.
Okay, I need to know the technicalities of that. How on earth does that work?
It only just about works. So you have me and my partner in our room. So it's actually probably a two bedroom flat. We're in one room. Then my oldest brother and youngest brother are in another room. And then we have like a summer house outside where my other brother and his partner live. And then currently my mother and mother's partner actually have to sleep in the lounge because we just don't have space because it's just a small house. But we make it work.
They've got like a pull-out bed or something.
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
So we're all happy and we make it work, but it is small.
And do you argue?
No, luckily. So
No.
I'm very strong. On the basis that I never like arguing. I don't believe arguing is the way to resolve any situation at all. Shouting has never solved anything. So I don't argue, and I feel like I bring that sort of vibe to the house as well. My mum's exactly the same. She doesn't want to argue. She's the most relaxed person I've ever met, really, in that sense. We just much rather just get on with it, really. And we make it work and everyone's happy.
That sounds amazing. You were talking to me about positive masculinity. Is that the term you use?
Yes, yeah, so positive or healthy masculinity.
Healthy masculinity. Is that a backlash to toxic masculinity that's been the buzz for a few years now?
I guess it's my way of retaliating and starting to put people who are a bit toxic with their masculinity in their place a little bit, and trying to help them, not seeing them as enemies, but trying to help them realise that what they're doing is not okay.
And so tell me about that. How did you get into that?
So it all sort of, I've always been very respectful of women. My mum is an angel, and I've always loved my mum, always will love my mum. So I've always been very, very protective of her. So from a young age, from as young as I can remember, I clung on to my mum like I was a limpet on a rock. So I've always had that respect. My nan is brilliant as well. She's an angel. They've helped me for everything, because I have lived quite a life of anxiety and confidence issues, but they've always sort of been there to keep me going, and I just think that they deserve to be commended for that. And I feel that like some men sometimes don't give that same level of reward or acknowledgement to the people, and predominantly the ladies in their life that do look out for them and do care and support them and help them. And I just don't think that maybe they don't even realise, and they'd much rather go out and drink 20 pints on the weekend, or come home and have a shouting match and have a go at their partner. I just don't think it's a healthy or fair way to live, and that's why I've sort of turned. I just don't agree with toxic masculinity in any form whatsoever, because no one deserves that, and no one should be acting like that either.
So are you proactively doing something to get that message out? Is there a group, or do you think there's a movement towards that? I
think there is slightly. I haven't done anything particularly myself apart from just challenge whenever I hear something, especially in young people now. So in the work I do, or even just young people I know, I make it sort of my mission to challenge what they're saying or what they're doing, because I think it's really important that they grow up and realise that they can't say these things or they can't do these things, because it's just not a healthy way to live, and it's just not a generation we need. And I'd like to think that I'm getting through to them, and that they're starting to realise that a big one for me, as I say, I've always been keen on healthy masculinity because of my own struggles with mental health, but a big sort of mention goes to a man who I used to work with, actually, who was called Gareth Williams, and he is the pinnacle of healthy masculinity, if you ask me. He's excellent. I already knew a lot, but he really showed me what it means to really go to the next level with that healthy masculinity.
And what does that look like?
For me, that is the challenging people and feeling comfortable enough to challenge people when you're in a situation where you don't feel comfortable, and being able to say no if you're out with your friends and they want you to have a pint but you're not interested in drinking, because I've never been keen on alcohol. It's not something that I've been interested in for a long time, and I just think, if anything, it just ruins lives, and I could speak about that for hours.
Do you consider yourself a role model?
I like to think I am, and I always try to be, especially in my work, but also at home. So I have a 13-year-old brother who, it's actually really important to me that he has those role models, because I don't want him to grow up, and I don't think he would, but I don't want him to grow up and face any sort of adversities due to things he says or does, because he doesn't know any different. So I made sure I got him into a football team. I take him to his football training sessions, to every game that he plays. Anything he says that might come across as, I don't know, a little bit, I'm not sure on that, I challenge it. I want to try and shape him into a really good person, which he is. He's a brilliant kid, but I just want to keep that going, because these are the years in a men's development, or in anyone's development, but especially in a man's development, of your teenage years, are where things can really start to plateau in that way, and you can get involved with the wrong people. And I'm just making it my mission to make sure that doesn't happen, because he's got so much potential. And I think that must stem from my work as well. I just want to see people succeed. That's the main thing for me, and I just want And it's not just men, obviously. I want the girls to do exactly the same, and in the same way that I challenge anything that they might say in the way of all men are like this, or I do this because I know a man's going to do that. By all means, I can understand why you'd be afraid of this or afraid of that, because unfortunately there has been men out there who have been stupid enough to do this thing or do that thing. But I just want to try and rewrite that narrative and show them that not everyone is evil. I know that I have a big stature. That has been a thing for me in the past. I have a big stature. I'm a big man. I don't want to come across as scary to anybody. I want them to realise that I'm quite the opposite. If anything, I'm probably scared of them. I think positive masculinity just needs to be realising that the idea of a man nowadays is very different to what it was maybe 50 or 60 years ago. I'm not ashamed to admit that this year already, we're recording this on the 18th of January, and I've probably cried more days than I haven't, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. I don't mind. I would tell anybody that, because it's not a weakness. It doesn't bother me at all, and I'd much rather people came to me and told me they were upset than they were suffering. I don't want people to suffer, and I think for me, positive masculinity is a lot of it is just actually being a good human. It's not even just about masculinity. It's just being a good person, being a nice person, being respectful, having good values, good ethics, and I think the main thing for me, and not that it matters, but for me it does, I hope and pray that when I'm not there, people talk highly of me, because that's my main mission, is for people to realise, not just me, but I want to show other people that you can still be spoken highly of. It doesn't have to be drama all the time. I want people to go, Callum is actually a really nice man. That's all I want, is people to feel comfortable and safe around me.
Have you seen a shift in people's ideas towards masculinity? I mean, I certainly have. Being able to be vulnerable, being able to
100%, yes.
Say how you feel.
It's so much better now than it was before, and it's such a welcome change, because everyone knows it's not healthy to bottle anything up, but especially as a man, I mean, the rates that I've read online, 18 men kill themselves a day, and I just think that is a crazy statistic. I might have got that statistic wrong, but it is something like that. And the main person who unfortunately does take their life nowadays is predominantly men, and it's just such a shame, and it's so preventable if a man just stood up and said, I need to have a chat, let's go for a walk, let's go for a drink, do you want to play a couple of games and have a chat, or can we just talk? That is the main thing. Personal experience, just talking about things, getting it out of here and getting it onto paper or saying it to somebody makes things 10 times better. And I just wish there was a way of showing people that, because I think some people really struggle with that, and they think that it's really cliche, and it's a really cliche thing to say that talking does help, but it really does, especially if you're talking to the right person.
I've seen online a lot of oversharing with people that's also off-putting. Where do you think that line is between being able to, say how you feel without burdening other people? Do you know what I mean? Or sort of being annoyingly oversharing.
I mean, I personally think if you are struggling with something, and if social media is your only place where you can release that, do it, but change the narrative and do it in a different way. So, for example, I see it on TikTok nowadays. So many men, and this is brilliant, so many men will go on there and just talk about how they're having a rubbish day, or they've had a bad week, and that's so much better than a Facebook status says, feel like rubbish, don't want to speak right now. That does not help, because then you see the comments under it, what's up, don't want to talk about it, and that might help people, but I know that in the long run that is not going to help, because you will start to, unfortunately, some people will start to crave that attention, whereas if you turn it and channel it into something more positive, then you might find that even works better for you. So, for example, myself, I've never been one to post on Facebook that I'm feeling rubbish, but over the past few weeks I have felt rubbish. So I'm now turning that on its head and starting a podcast where I talk about those things, because I think it really needs to be put out there. And I think as a podcast as well, it might be that a man is travelling to work by himself and he just needs to hear someone talking about these things. It doesn't have to, I've got no interest or no expectations of this becoming a big thing. I just want some men to listen to it and think, wow, I'm glad someone said that, because I now feel comfortable to go and speak to someone about it, or I'm going to go and make a doctor's appointment. Anything like that. I just want to be able to put it all out there, tell people what I've been through and what other people have been through, and realise for them that they're not the only ones that have been there, and they won't be the last ones, but just how they can make that better for themselves as well.
And when you say what you've been through, what have you been through?
So I've faced quite a lot of issues with mental health in the past, anxiety and depression solely, which has sort of just always been there from a young age really. For as long as I can remember, I've been very shy and anxious. It's just something that's been there since I was born. Depression sort of just stems from school. School was not for me. I think school was a large thing. Some of the people at school not understanding why I was so anxious, but also I think just general life. I think general life got me a bit depressed. I felt like I was never going to get anywhere because I was just so sick and tired of the way that the world was running. Another big thing in relation to masculinity, that I wasn't interested in I thought that men had to go out and drink 50 pints a weekend and get in 10 fights on a Saturday night, and I just thought it was so pathetic, and it really infuriates me that unfortunately some people don't realise that is just not the way forwards. And so I think just a variety of things built up, very depressed, very anxious, didn't want to leave my room, but luckily I got medical help for it, which I would advise anyone to do, and it is scary, but I'd advise anybody to do it because it really has sort of changed the game in that sense.
What, did you have medication? Or?
Yeah, so I still take medication now, and I probably will for the rest of my life, and I'm okay with that. It just helps me regulate on an everyday basis, and again, there's no shame in that at all. I would hold my hand up. I'd stand in front of a room of 200 people and tell them that, because why should I be judged for bettering myself? In the same way, why should, if you had a group of men and one of the men challenged something another one of their friends said, and the other boys in the group were like, oh, why are you challenging that? Why are you being like this? Don't be a wetty or anything like that. They're trying to better themselves and they're trying to better the people in that group. Why should they be disrespected or looked down upon for trying to better people? And I think that's no different with yourself as well. If you're trying to better yourself, then by all means do it. Yeah.
When you didn't want to leave your room, how long did that last, that period?
So
in your life?
Lasted a few years.
Really?
From sort of 18 years old, so I finished post-16, from about 18 until about 21. So
and you're only 24 now?
24, 25.
25.
So yeah, I've had very strange few years in that sense, and I'm trying to better myself, to better the people around me, challenging those people at a younger age, so they don't end up, or hopefully not end up in a similar situation to me, because it wasn't fun.
No. And did you not go out for those years, or did you not go to school? Or
well, I would go out, but the main issue was work and employment. I was so afraid of working and being employed and being tied down to a contract and having to be somewhere at a certain time on a certain day. So I could leave the house. I loved walking, which really helped me, and exercising. I've always been keen on sports. So I've always done it, just not as much as I did before, because it was so much easier being in the safety of my own room.
Yeah, so it wasn't agoraphobia per se, it was more to do with sort of maybe a backlash from your experiences at school.
Yeah, it was comfort. It was my safe place. I was safe there, and it's where I knew no one's going to bother me, and it's where I know I can shut people off for however long I need to. I can sit in a dark room for hours on end if I need to, which I now know is not healthy. But at the time, when you're really struggling, you don't think rationally. You just.
Were you online as well?
Yes, I go online. I play like online games with my friends, but that was about it really. I wasn't really interested in putting it online at the time. But I think because I'm on like a, don't want to say a road to recovery, because I think I'm already there somewhat, but Now I'm on sort of I just want to help other people now to realise that it does get better, and that it's okay to. I had 3-4 years of my life that were not okay, but 3-4 years of a bad life, which can then stem into a great life.
And it feels like forever.
It does feel like forever. It did feel like forever, and I do regret a bit. Well, not regret, but I sometimes look back and think 18 years old to 21 years old were meant to be the years where I was out doing things. And I mean, again, the general consensus for a man is that they should be out getting drunk, and I just wasn't interested. But that's when I felt like I should have been going on the holidays I wanted to go on and been earning money and working hard, but I just couldn't. There was a block mentally where it just couldn't happen because I was so afraid. So that's probably had sort of stemmed a bit on the toxic masculinity as well, because I didn't feel like a man, if I'm honest. I wasn't providing. I was just at home, and I felt like I wasn't doing enough. I didn't have a purpose, and it did at the time. I felt like as a man, you need to be providing, and you need to have that purpose.
And you found it through work in the end?
Yeah, I think through work and routine, and I think having something worth fighting for. So when I just turned 18, actually, so this plateau could have gone on longer, but when I just turned 18, I was fortunate enough to get with my partner, who I'm with now, and she has been a rock, really. She's stuck with me at the lowest, so she now gets me at my highest.
There seems to be a lot of young people, particularly, or everybody really, but young people particularly, with anxiety and mental health issues more than ever before. I've got ideas as to what that stems from. Have you?
100%. And my thinking is the COVID pandemic. That's where a lot of it comes from. For me, a lot of time spent at home around family, and it's just family. So that's where separation anxiety can come in, or it's where issues with socialising can come in, because they haven't seen people for so long. To be fair, some of them were in primary school when it started, and when it ended, we're in secondary school. That's a big leap. So for kids, it's massive. It is huge, and no wonder, if I'm honest, no wonder they're anxious, because not only school, but I don't think the world nowadays it doesn't feel like a safe place. There's so many worries and things to worry about, or feel like you need to worry about. It doesn't feel like a safe place. So I'm really not surprised that anxiety levels have risen, because the future for some is, unfortunately, currently does look bleak. But that's why I, as one individual man, want to try and change up for some people. But I'm just hoping that it can be changed for every young person. But I do think that, and understand why those anxiety levels would rise.
And you blame COVID mainly?
Not just COVID. I think it's a big thing, and that's no one's fault at all. It's just one of those things. Being stuck at home for a long time, it would change a person. If you're not able to go out and socialise, learn in certain ways, go to school, it would change a lot. No wonder so many people working from home now, or so many people are afraid to work, or feel isolated because they haven't had a community for years. And I know we've come out the other side of it now, but it does still affect people. I mean, your post-16 level now were the sort of forgotten years. I like to refer to it as at school. They were the forgotten years, because all the schools were interested in really was getting their year 10s and 11s through GCSEs, and still keeping high percentage pass rates throughout the pandemic. And so they can sit there and say, oh yes, we faced adversities with the COVID pandemic, but at least 90% of our students have passed their GCSE. But what about the other 2,000 students you've got here who you haven't given enough time to, who are now in post-16, who are afraid to do so many things, don't want to do anything, they don't know any different, they're not social, and that's because they've been let down, in my opinion.
I think you've got a good point. You work with young people now.
Yes. Yeah, so I work with 16 to 18 year olds, up to 24 with an EHCP. So we work with a big variety of age groups there, but that is predominantly, that's 16 to 18. They are the group that are those forgotten years for me. And we're seeing it now. We see that it is so much more difficult to get these young people to want to work or want to take part in sport or stand in front of a group and talk. It's so difficult because they don't know any different. Yes, they had school for years before then, but year 9 and 10 is when that should really be starting to develop and flourish, but they've missed out on those development years, so we're now having to claw that back a little bit.
Do you feel that going to work brought you out of your depression and your anxious states? You still get anxious?
I get depressed and anxious still on probably a daily basis. So much better now because my brain is busy. If I'm working, I'm not thinking. If I am thinking, it's about work. And whilst that sounds unhealthy, when you're at work, there's nothing better than not having to think about other things, because you can do your work effectively. You can do it well, basically. And so when I'm here, the sort of anxiety levels do drop and the depression levels do drop. Working has definitely helped because it's given me a routine. It's given me a reason to leave the house every day, which is what I was actually afraid of, was being tied into a routine. But actually, that was something in the back of my brain, trying to fight the bit of my brain that wanted to be happy. It was trying to say, you don't want a routine because it's going to do this and it's going to do that. But actually, I've realised that having a routine just makes a week nicer, it makes a day nicer, a month nicer, a year nicer. You can do so many more nicer things.
What do you think? I totally get that. What do you think what's the fear of having a routine and being tied into something? Why does that not feel like security, but instead something that is worrying?
I think on a personal level, for me, it was being afraid of missing out. It was a fear of being afraid of missing out on family time, because me and my family are very close. A fear of one day looking back and regret and thinking I didn't do that because I was working. But to do those things, you need to work to earn money. So it's a bit of an awkward cycle to be in. My anxious brain was telling me horrible things like, if you start a job, you're never going to see your grandparents and you're going to regret that one day, which has not been the case. I still see them a lot, which is brilliant because I love my grandparents and they've been so supportive and so helpful. But that was one of my initial worries, was something in the back of my brain. It was almost like when you watch a TV program and you have an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other, and they're just fighting in your head and you're stuck in the middle and it just feels like it's going to erupt. So I think that's the evil part of your brain trying to tell you that you don't want a routine because of this, because of that, all these irrational thoughts and fears that are just not or haven't happened.
And did you sort of somehow know that wasn't, that you did need to do that?
Yes.
Go and get a job and...
Yes and no. I mean, I knew because of I like to think I'm quite mature for a 25-year-old, and I knew within myself that's what I needed. So I was applying for jobs and I was trying to work, and I go to interviews, I get the job, but when the first day of the job would start is when the anxiety would get really crippling and I'd be too afraid to go and work.
Oh, really?
And I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't take myself to the workplace because I was so afraid, so I kept getting jobs and having to drop them.
What jobs did you get?
So I had a job at Toys R Us when that still existed. Did the interviews, loved it, because I've always, even though I'm 25, love toys and still a bit of a child at heart. Was really, really keen to get started there. Did the interviews, they offered me a job, but it came to the day of starting there and I just couldn't do it.
What, on the first day?
The first day. I couldn't get myself there. And I know it's normal for people to be scared, and I tell myself that all the time, it's okay to be afraid, but this was like a next level. It was up at 2 a.m. in the morning with my heart racing, having a panic attack, cold sweats, overthinking everything. What if I get shouted at for this? What if I do this wrong? What if I do that wrong? So I'm completely knackered by the time I'm meant to be going to work. So that's a factor. I'm freaking out because I'm so afraid, and it all just sort of comes together in this ball, and it's easier to just go, nope, I don't need that. And
so did you not go in?
No.
Did you phone them up and say, I can't?
I had to, and that's really embarrassing within itself, because it's the having to admit I'm not coming today. And at the time, I was really embarrassed by the fact of I'm not coming today because I'm anxious. And at the time, I thought, I felt within myself it wasn't a good enough excuse. As I've got older, I've realised that unfortunately that is the way it can be sometimes. But that happened in many different places. Toys R Us, a shop up the road from me, which was just like a newsagent, a digital marketing apprenticeship, which I started. So I did actually attend that, but my mum had to pretty much drag me there. So it was a case of being dragged there whilst crying the whole way there, getting there, trying not to cry all day, coming home crying. So it was not a fun time. But I still think it has helped me, because yes, I've had all these negative experiences, but I wouldn't be where I am now if I didn't have those negative experiences, because all those negative experiences stemmed into me joining a program called HITZ with my younger brother, which is an alternative provision, which has actually turned out with me working at HITZ. So without having all those adversities and things go wrong and all that anxiety, those sleepless nights, I wouldn't be where I am now. So I try and flip it on its head and tell myself it's a positive.
Yeah, you were actually bringing your brother here, weren't you?
Yeah, so again,
work.
I was trying to better my brother, trying to make him find something that worked for him and made him happy. And in the process, found something that worked for me and made me happy. So I like to think that somewhere up there, my conscience has gone, you've done something really nice for someone there, so we're going to reward you.
And I suppose that sort of eased you into it without that initial sort of, I've got to go and start a new job,
Yes,
because you were already bringing your brother to his education provision.
Well, I remember the first day, actually, the first working day. I wasn't nervous because I knew the place and I was so ready. I'd been here as a student, or as a student supporting my brother. I knew the area already, I knew the location. All I had to do was get there and I'd be fine. I'm so glad I did.
And how long have you been working in that role?
So I've been working, I did 2 years here as a teaching assistant, and I'm in my second year now of tutoring. So 4 years in total working here on the programme, and that was just after the pandemic. So it all sort of stemmed from, in the pandemic, we were doing lessons online, and I said to my tutor at the time, who was doing the role that I'm doing now, if anyone needs any support, send them my way. And he sort of said, do you know what, I think you'd make a great teaching assistant. And it all blew up from there. So the pandemic also...
Who said that?
So my old tutor at the time, he's called Lewis Griffiths. It's been an absolute star in helping me develop and grow as a person. He gave me that opportunity when it sounds cheesy, but no one else did. No one was giving me that opportunity, and he sort of said, I want to take a chance on you. I'm glad he did, because it's helped me get to where I am now.
And around your positive masculinity, healthy masculinity, where do you think I think there's room there. What do you think maybe you could do something with that? What do you think you could do?
I really want to, and it's just finding those things. I mean, I'm starting a podcast. I've already...
Do you know what it's going to be called?
Yes, I'm going to call it Chasing Highs. Essentially in the case of chasing and finding ways to be happy and healthy ways of being happy. This podcast is going to be firstly myself talking about my experiences, what I've faced as adversities, what I've done to be happy, what I do on a daily basis to be happy, and what I'm going to do in the future to be happy as well. And a big part of that being happy is going to be this podcast, because for me, being able to enrich other people's lives and just being able to give someone a voice to talk to listen to. Sometimes that's all people need to feel better, but also having people on to share their experiences in a hope that might make them feel better, or they have something that I don't have that they can offer to people and help them as well. So that's what I'd like to do. I've also really loved the idea of spreading this message in schools or in any other ways possible, but I think they are really important things that need to be addressed.
Great. I think you're doing a grand job.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
No problem.